Yeah. Fly was flying on the team. Touchdown, touchdown. Time to get Jalen this ring. You don't really want to start a thing. This a Bird Gang Nation, baby. It's a Philly thing. Hater, and you looking like you type trash. I'm just here calling with Philly the podcast. And we can call a man dog or watch Miles score off the handoff. Rest of the division, your man soft. Jackson like Sean, hunting like Randolph. Season here, early time to do them in. Your boy Philly Fresco. Thanks for tuning in.
What's going on, you guys? It's your boy Joe Castro, aka Philly Fresco, and it is Philly the podcast. So today we have a family member on here. I won't even say special guest. We got my bro here, Hunter. We got Hunter from Philly Insider Podcast. What's going on, Hunter?
Hey, I'm doing well, Joe. It's been too long, like we said before we started the stream. Haven't collabed with anyone in ages, so it's good to be back here talking birds with you. I haven't talked birds in a while, honestly, so it's good to get back into it. How are you doing, brother?
I cannot complain. I really cannot complain. It's funny because I did speak. We were trying to get Brandon on the show today, so I was gonna try to surprise you with Brandon because back in the day we kind of started around the same time. One of our first
Yes.
collabs, me and Brandon, was you. You were one of our first collabs. So
That was a blast.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to bring the crew back together, but unfortunately he's busy today. So it is what it is. But we are gonna have some
Tough.
fun. We're definitely gonna talk some birds. We're gonna talk a little bit of Phillies too, because I want to know what's going on over there. But I do want to start with OTAs, right? I want to start with from what we've heard, there hasn't been too much going on in camps, right? You're looking at like 45, 55-minute practices. It doesn't seem like they're really taking it too, I don't want to say serious, but it doesn't feel like they're going, all out as far as, padded
Right.
and going crazy like that. Obviously, there's some things that they can't do because of the Players Association. But from what you've heard, what you've seen, how are you feeling? And what storyline, if any, is sticking out to you in this OTAs?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. I think, obviously Jalen's looking good. There's a lot of talk. Obviously, Sirianni has said he looked a lot better coming back to camp, which is what we want to see, right?
Yeah.
But again, you can't put any stock, like serious stock into it. It's OTAs. There's a lot left to go, and it's 7-on-7s, right? I mean, there's obviously a little more room for margin for error at times there, and it's not the same thing. So I do think that I think Jalen's going to have a better season for sure. I'm not sure if I'm on the MVP train per se, but I do think he's going to improve. I really do. I think Jalen's going to have a good year. That's been the big thing to me. Also, safety position I know is a concern. You have Marcus Epps and Anthony Harris back there, but I do think with the way the rest of the defense is structured, I think they'll be able to hold up. And I do think Marcus Epps had a good season last year, so I'm looking forward to seeing what he does. But I think these guys, even for what it sounds like, they look good. Chemistry's good. I think the biggest takeaway for me was Jalen Hurts' walk-off at the celebrity softball game. I mean, that was really the big storyline of the offseason so far to me. But what have kind of been your big takeaways?
Yeah, that has to be, right? We're already beating Micah Parsons and Dallas Cowboys. People's were already getting in their head. I love
Yes.
that. AJ Brown talking that talk after the
Love
game and
it.
everything we saw. So yeah, I do. It feels different. It does
Yeah.
feel different. I feel this year. Last year, a big thing for me was like, who is Jalen Hurts? I wanted to figure that out. But this year, it really truly feels like it doesn't. We know to a certain extent who Jalen Hurts is. We don't know who he'll become. Obviously, he can get way better and become a different sort of player. But we kind of know what the base is there. But with me, it's like you look at this team, and I don't need you to be anything more than you were last year. Just protect that ball. Don't make foolish mistakes. Try and clean up some of the mistakes that you did make last year, specifically in the Cowboys game. I felt like he was just throwing to the air. I had no idea sometimes what he was doing. So there's some things that I definitely want to see cleaned up, but it's almost like he can take a very moderate step forward and still be that guy, still really lead this team to a very good season. And I think for me, the biggest takeaway this year is really Jordan Davis. I love that Jordan Davis is really just not being talked about. I love that Jordan Davis is not like, he's not everybody's eye. Everybody's worried about Nakobe Dean. Everybody's worried about AJ Brown, Quez Watkins. What's this guy doing? And meanwhile, you got our first round pick who may have a huge impact on this team, kind of just going under the wing. Like he said the other day that he felt he was the strongest guy on this team. So I like that smoke. I like that he's bringing that. You know what I'm saying? But I also want to go back. I kind of want to ask you about the quarterback room in specific a little bit deeper. Like obviously we see Jalen Hurts and he's the top of the totem poles, so to speak. But there's a lot of talk about Gardner Minshew. There's a lot of talk about maybe trading Gardner Minshew. I'm personally not a guy that thinks that's a smart move. I think that the Eagles should probably hold on to him, especially if you think you have a chance this year. If you think this team is that good, I think having a good backup, excuse me, will help you in the long run. Hopefully, it doesn't need to be needed. It's not
Mhm.
necessary, but it will help you. How do you feel about this quarterback room? Are you a guy that feels Carson Strong can step in and be that backup if need be? Where do you stand?
I kind of see both sides of it. So first off on Carson Strong, I loved him pre-draft. I still think even with the knee problem, he can be a really good NFL quarterback, maybe a good backup someday, maybe a good developmental guy on for a team that kind of was looking for a starter. I thought if the Panthers didn't draft someone, he would have made a lot of sense for them.
Yeah,
My thing is, and I don't want to compare him to Jamie Newman because Jamie Newman really didn't, I don't think he had the football IQ that Carson Strong does. But at the same time, we saw a lot of people get excited about Jamie Newman. He didn't make it past OTAs. I don't even think he made it through OTAs. I don't even think they waited till after OTAs to cut him. I think they cut him mid OTAs, if I'm not mistaken. So, or it was like rookie mini camp, something. He got cut very, very quickly. Now, Carson Strong, I don't think that's going to happen. He's going to play in the preseason, and I think he's going to play a good bit. I don't know if he can step into that backup role yet. What I will say is with Minshew, he is on the last year of his deal, and there are other teams. If someone goes down like a Sam Bradford type of situation, that's very rare, right? It's not guaranteed it's going to happen. But that is something you consider depending on, a team at that point might be a little bit desperate because they feel like they have a good squad and they still want to compete. They're willing to get a little desperate and give a little too much for Minshew. Yeah, absolutely. I'd be willing to trade him. Not so much because I'm confident in Carson Strong. I am confident in Carson Strong, but I'm not going to act like I'm like he could get us a win when he goes out there. I don't know. I mean, he's new. He's a rookie. It's all unknown. Minshew has experience, and that is valuable to this team. So on the other side of that, if we don't get the value we want from Minshew, like I'm talking like, a fifth, I don't know. At that point, like maybe that might be the highest you get. Sure, you could argue that. I don't know if I'm willing to take that. I might just want to hold off. We can get like a fourth or a third. I might be willing to do that, depending on what the whole deal is structured like. But on the other side of it, you have a guy who's very experienced. He made something out of nothing in Jacksonville. He got us a win last year when he was in. Looked great against the Dallas first team defense in that last game. When keep in mind, Minshew was surrounded by his second and third string guys the whole game. So I thought he really did his job that game. And I think he got a couple lucky passes, but still, I mean, he's a smart football player. I think he really brings a lot of energy to the team. I see both sides of it. So if the value's there, I would be willing to trade him. But I also think that you can't put enough value on having an experienced backup. I think that's just we've seen that time and time again as Philadelphia Eagles fans.
That's a fact. I mean, we got him here for what, a sixth? I think we paid for him, or maybe a
Yeah.
seventh. I think it
Oh
was a
yeah.
conditional. So I mean, we got him for a very late round pick. If you can get anything above that, I think it's a win. But
And you you
go
got
ahead.
that 6th round pick back with Matt Pryor too. So
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, you basically got him for free, right? We
yeah,
can. I think we can say that. Who
yeah,
really cares about a 6th round pick, anyways? I know we kind
right.
of hit on some guys, but still, it's a 6th round pick for a proven guy. So
Yeah,
you got him for the cheap, at the very least, and you can flip him
right.
for, like you said, maybe a third, maybe a fourth. It has to be a guy that's, a team that's like really, really desperate for a
Sure.
starter, like you said, but he proved his worth. I think that Gardner Minshew is a guy that isn't that far off of, and people are probably going to get triggered when I say this, but he's not that far off of what Jalen Hurts can offer you as a
Sure.
passer, if not better, realistically. So, I mean, we can argue about Jalen Hurts becoming better, and that's what we expect, and that's why he's going to be the starter over a guy like Gardner Minshew. But
Right.
you go into a game with the type of game plan that I assume we're going to have for Jalen Hurts. Gardner Minshew can do that like nothing. You know what I'm saying? He's not
Mhm.
going to do it at an elite level. He's not going to do anything fancy and shock you
Right.
or wow you, but he's going to do his job like he did in that Jets game. So I feel like that's a innate value. That's a big value to us. We've seen it before, especially with Eagles. We
Right.
just don't know how to stay healthy. We don't know how to stay on the field. It just is
Yeah.
frustrating. I don't have to tell you. I don't have to tell
Yeah.
It's just frustrating, man.
Hey,
But
I'll give credit to the coaching staff from last year. It seemed like whether it was a lot of walkthroughs or whatever practice apps they were doing, We stayed a lot healthier last year than we did the past, like, what, 5, 10 years. So I'll
Yeah.
take that for sure. But let's hope
Yeah.
that wasn't a fluke and that it continues this year because we know not to get our hopes high.
Fact. No, and I'm glad you say that though. Honestly, I'm glad you say that because I've been talking to a lot. Like we had, I think it was John McMullen I had on about the OTAs, talking about how they're like
Mhm.
55 minutes and how he felt about it. And coming away from that, like he was upset about it because he's an old school guy, which is all respect to that. But
Sure.
for me, coming away from that, it was like I came away with that with two trains of thoughts. It's like as a fan, I'm actually okay with this because of the things you said. This is probably the first time, last year was the first time that we went into the year like basically fully healthy. So I'm okay
Yeah.
with that part of it. But as a content creator, it's boring. As a content creator last year, we were really, talking about guys having crazy years and
Yeah.
all this stuff we were watching. So as a content creator, it's not what I want. But
Right.
we have to look at that as fans. We have to look at that and be realistic that we are not a team that is lucky in the health department. We've
Yeah.
never been that team.
Mhm.
So maybe this is the precaution we need to take. Now, do you think that this takes anything away from the team? Is that an argument people can make that this maybe is taken away from the cohesion of the team and the chemistry building? And like, how do
Mhm.
you feel? Because I want your opinion. How do you feel about these short OTA practices?
Mhm. I mean, look, I think then that's a valid point because last year it was, I don't want to say it was a ton of new guys. It was kind of the start of a new era. But a lot of the guys we had been in the building, before, outside of our rookies. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think we had a mass amount of free agents last year.
No.
Not that we have a mass amount this year, but we have, Kaiser White coming in, Hassan Reddick, and James Bradbury and AJ Brown. That's 4 new
I,
free agents, big
I
name
think
guys.
we could say like the expectation out of these guys is way higher than it was last year. I
Absolutely.
think that's very fair to
Absolutely.
say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think when you have all these new pieces coming in, and not to mention significant new pieces coming in, it's important to kind of build that chemistry and build that cohesion because look, I mean, a lot of times in sports when new play like star players go to new destinations, it takes a little bit of time. It happened with Bryce Harper. It happens in baseball a lot, which we'll get to. But it takes time for these guys to build that. And I do think that's something that maybe needs to be, worked on a little bit. But at the same time, I mean, in terms of purely culture, I mean, I think Sirianni knows what he's doing with that. I think it's more so just like scheme and getting everyone up to speed with what we want to accomplish on both sides of the ball and how we want to accomplish that. Because that's different for every team. Scheme is different for every single team. So yeah, I mean, I don't think AJ Brown's going to take too much time adjusting. Like, I think it's more so just him and Hurts building that chemistry while they're friends, obviously. I mean, I think people just assume that means they're automatically going to go out there and just be dropping dimes. That's something that it takes time. I mean, if you haven't been thrown to each other for a couple of years, I mean, it's going to take some time to build that together. So I think they will, but it's definitely a valid point to be talked about. But at the same time, I mean, like you said, I'm cool with staying healthy too, as long as that's
Yeah.
the benefit we're getting from it.
Exactly, especially this early, right? Like
Yep.
this early in camp, like
Right.
you still really aren't. And and I'll say me. I don't want to say we. I don't want to throw you in my mess, but I might bash the coaching staff for how they're doing their practices and get upset because I want to see practices. But there's a
Yeah.
lot that the Players Association just isn't allowing anymore. All right,
Yeah.
you have the new agreement and everything, so there are things that they can't do. So it's kind of both kind of working together, which it is what it is. I had Kyle Yeomans on the show, and he's the Cowboys guy, right? So it's like I asked him to just like tell me what their practices looked like, and he was telling me
Sure.
people were still getting knocked on their backside and this and that. And I'm like, man, we ain't doing nothing. It just feels, but it is what it is. Let's just stay
Yeah.
healthy and let's get there. You did bring up scheme. You did bring up scheme, which I want to talk to you about because one thing that I've always loved about you, Hunter, is that you know your stuff. You know your football. You know what I'm saying? That's why I always love talking to you. But one thing I wanted to ask you because people ask me all the time, what do you think this offense is going to look like? And
Mm.
I just don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
My assumption is going to be probably just a little bit more complex version of last year. You know what I'm saying? But what do you think? How do you picture this offense coming out? Like, are they now a passing team? Are we now, the Kansas City Chiefs? Like,
Right.
how drastic of a change do you envision coming into the 2022 year?
Yeah, I mean, I think you still wanna try to set things up with the run. I know that's not, like, the end all be all, but at the same time, I think it's your bread and butter, and I think the big thing with the run game is that a lot of teams, either they're like a zone scheme or a gap scheme, they have their kind of their system and their set of run plays they wanna run. The Eagles, they just say, you know what, we're going to go out there and run every single run play on the planet. Like they do everything on the ground. And I think that's so valuable, especially when you have Jalen Hurts who just keeps that extra guy honest off the edge. It makes all the difference for us. But at the same time, I think he did take steps forward as a passer in those last few games. I think you saw him stay in the pocket. He was composed, he was poised. And I think he is ready for the next step. Now, I don't think you want to force it. The run games work and you use it, right? But you obviously do want to, try to get the ball into your playmakers' hands because now, last year your playmakers were really on the ground outside of Smitty and Goddard. Those were your only two threats to the air. Now you have actual weapons. You can have AJ Brown, who you can have three guys on one side, put AJ Brown on the boundary, and let him go do his thing. Right? He can go to work. You can put Goddard out there one-on-one on the boundary if you want to. Even like Pascal. Now Pascal's the fourth wide receiver. That's a lot of sense in context now. And in lieu of everything that's going on since, you have a guy who can come in third down, red zone, situational dude who can really be a good passing weapon for you. So I do think they're going to maybe pass. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be 50-50 like last year. Maybe 55-45 leaning towards the pass. I mean, that's the NFL today. It's a pass-heavy league. And you have an offensive line that can do it in the ground and the air. So that gives you a lot of help. They're not one-dimensional. And I do think like this is, something smaller, but I don't know if Calcaterra is going to get more than like 2-3 targets a game. And I don't even know if he's going to make the opening day roster because I could see them putting him on the practice squad. But if he does, I do think that Stoll and J-Jaw and some of these other guys are more blockers for sure. J-Jaw's a tight end because he's a blocker and special team. That's a given. He'll be a T3 if he makes the team, right? But Calcaterra, I do think provides a little bit of that receiving threat. And I do think being able to run 12 personnel and having the threat of passing there. Last year, I didn't think that was there with Stoll. I like Stoll a lot, but I didn't think we had much of a threat of passing in 2 and 3 tight end sets. I think now we could with Calcaterra, but it all depends on how it comes out in training camp and how he looks in preseason, right? If it doesn't look good, you're not going to force him onto the roster. But and then lastly, I mean, look, I think Quez Watkins makes everything work because he keeps everyone honest over the top. And then you have AJ Brown getting, you have to decide, are we going to allocate resources towards AJ Brown? Are we going to try to allocate them towards Goddard and the seam? Everything else opens up. And I think everyone plays off of each other so well. And now Smitty can kind of play off the line a little bit. You can move him in motion if you need to. He doesn't need to be that X receiver that Brown is now. So I think everyone is in a role that fits them so perfectly that I think the pass game is just going to mesh so well. And it's going to go well off of play action. And the last piece of it is Kenny Gainwell, who can go out in there and line up out wide and go to work with all these guys. So there's a lot of fun packages I think they can introduce with the pass, but I also don't think they want to go away from the run too much. And I'm interested to see what they do in the run game as well.
Yeah, I just hope they don't get too cute. I feel like this is we have a very rare. I think is a fair word to use. A very rare combination of power on the offense. With that offensive line that can just maul you and just can set the tone for a game, especially in the run game. And then you have all these different weapons, right? All these guys that you kind of want to get on swing passes, get on these, crazy gadget plays. So I hope they just don't get too cute. I feel like if you put a lot of speed and shiftiness behind power, it can work. So I'm hoping that's the lane they go into. But with Jalen Hurts, I've been one to say that I think that if you look at the San Francisco 49ers game, where it was a lot of short passes, a lot of, stuff right in front of him, kind of just getting the ball in the hands of playmakers. I feel like that's kind of where we should model our game after. I think that we were very run heavy. We kind of used the pass as an extension of the run, and it put Jalen Hurts and our playmakers in, very good situations. And I love Quez Watkins. I really do think Quez Watkins is going to break out this year. This is all these weapons on this team is just like, it's crazy at the wide receiving spot. How do you see that shaking up? Because I got Quez at 3. I feel like I just feel like Quez should take that 3. And then I got Pascal at 4. And then I got Jalen Reagor. I don't even know, to be honest. But how do you see that wide receiver room kind of shake it up?
I have it the same as you. I think Quez is that number 3. And, not saying he's always going to be the deep threat, but I think that's going to be his job for the most part. And even in the run game, I mean, that keeps the safeties honest. You saw it in that Chargers game. I think it helped a ton when he was, we went 3 tight ends and we had Quez out wide and we just let him go deep every time. It kept everyone honest, and it helped us open up. The safeties couldn't come down to fill the run because they're like, well, if it's play action and Quez is there, I'm done for, because Quez is just that guy on the deep ball. But I do think he can be used underneath as well. I mean, I think he's going to be the number 3 guy for sure. I think I mean, the fact that he earned it last year, and I'm not saying he doesn't have to earn it this year, but you saw him, the way he came in and worked last year. He knows kind of what the NFL is about now. And I think he's ready for that year 3. And then as far as 4, I also have Pascal. I think Pascal's just such a reliable guy, especially in the red zone. I think he's going to be a key guy. Just he's probably going to get some one-on-ones now down the seam. And I think that's really where he does a lot of his work. And 5, unfortunately, I think it does have to be Rager. Just because, look, I mean, if you cut him, you're paying more than you are to have him on the team. I mean, it costs a lot. I think it's a big dead cap hit to cut him. So I don't know if that's really an option. Now you could trade him. I mean, there obviously the Chuck Clark report was out. And honestly, like, I think that might be best too. I mean, he's obviously off the field. He's going through a really tough time right now with the Jeff Gladney situation. So, respect to him. I mean, I'm really am praying for him. Prayers for him and his family and friends and everyone who's affected, including Rager. So, that sucks. I do think a change of scenery might just be good for him in general, because these fans are not very kind. So, yeah, and they were not. I was at a game last year.
They're nice, Hunter.
Absolutely. I was at the Tuesday night game last year against Washington. Jogs out there to return the punt. And I mean, he just got booed every single time. And he had like an okay game that day, and he just got booed every time. So I think it might be best, but I do think as of right now, he's the 5. But then you factor in, like, well, you also have Greg Ward there too. And it's like, if Rager does get traded, who gets that last spot? Are you going to put Greg Ward there? Does Britton Covey come in and just absolutely show out on special teams and win a spot? Like, there's some interesting names there. Does Hightower come back from the dead and win a spot this year? Like, it's going to be interesting. I think Ward definitely has the lead if there's a 6 wide receiver spot, but we'll see what happens. Where are you at with the kind of the back end of the group?
Yeah. So I said the first 4. Obviously, I'm kind of looking at the first 2 as kind of 1 and 1. Like, hey, I really don't look at either of them as our number 1. It's just we got 2 number 1s out there. But I really don't know what to do with Ray. I really don't. I do believe that a change of scenery is best for him. I would hate to
Yeah.
just see him outright cut, especially this late in camp. Like, or not late. I guess it's not that late. And if it happens before they go back for like training camp, then at least, you salvage some type of, you go get used to your team and everything.
Right.
It's tough. It's tough because there was something there. We all saw the TCU team. There was something there. I'm not saying he's a first overall pick or a first round pick, but there was something there. There was talent there. And it's a lot of things that all happened at once. And I think it just beat up his mentality.
Yeah.
I would love to see him at least make some impact on this team if at all possible. But I'm looking at Quez at number 3. I'm looking at Pascal at number 4. At number 5, it's tough. It's tough because I want to give it to him. I really do. I really want to just say, I think this is the year he can figure it out. Because what you remember when we put Nelly at, he was number 3. Obviously, it's a little bit different, but we put Nelson Aguilar there at that 3 position, and he finally gave us a good year.
Yes.
And I feel like maybe that would happen with Nelson Aguilar. with
Jalen Rager.
Jalen Rager. Jalen Rager. Yeah, that's why I'm messing up his name. But maybe that happens with Jalen Rager. But I don't know. I don't know. It really does come down to who gives me the best showing at that special team. So maybe a Britton Covey, like you said, because Britton Covey looks like a guy that can just return any damn thing for a touchdown. Because his highlights is crazy. His tape is crazy.
My. It's crazy, yeah.
And he seems like a Philly guy. He's like really humble. Doesn't seem like he lets the outside noise really get to him. His story getting to the NFL itself is kind of crazy. So I mean,
I got a question for you too. I mean, how much different do you think the last 2 years would have played out for Rager if he had been let's say like a round 2 or a round 3 pick? Like, do you think the mentality kind of changes there? Like, what do you think anything changes there? Or I feel like the first round pressure definitely impacted it, but I'm just curious as to how much you think that played into the whole thing.
I think that was a big factor, but I think that it was I think it was the whole. It was a whole of all the parts, right? It was like the sum of all the parts that really like did it, because I think like you add that, then you add to a team that was just good and kind of just fell off out of nowhere, right? And you add that to, and then you add that together. You add together that your head coach now gets fired. You add together that
Yeah.
there was just your quarterback that you built a bond with is now getting kicked out and booed out of the stadium every day. And so it's like everything just got, and I'm not saying he's mentally weak because that's a lot of things to deal with. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Especially
Sure.
if you do have any type of mental health issues or anything,
Right.
ailing you in that type of department. Not saying that he does, but even if you, especially if you do deal with something like that, all that movement around you and all that change, and you went through that in college too. Like I think he had a different quarterback almost every year he was there.
Yeah.
And not just that, he had a terrible quarterback almost every
Yeah.
year that he was there. So it's like,
Yep.
how much could you deal with? And I'm sure it was way more than just Philadelphia. Then you add the fans.
Right.
It's like I feel like everything just kind of kept sprinkling on, kept going on, and then it's the
Yeah.
last straw that breaks the camel's back. There's so much that was
Right.
going on
Right.
there. So I think that it played into it, but I don't think it was the main reason. I think there was a lot going on even before he
Sure.
got here. If I'm being real, like I think that he just was everywhere, but we'll see what happens. We'll definitely see what happens with Jalen Rager. I hope that he makes some type of comeback. John Hightower, that would be interesting. I kind of forgot about him. I'm not gonna lie. You know what
Yes.
I mean? Like I definitely agree with you with Greg Ward. I think if there is a sixth spot, that he's definitely got that. But I think
Yeah.
the guy that you got to look at is who's going to make the biggest impact for you on special teams. Sure, you might put a Quez
Right.
Watkins back there. He's no
Yeah.
longer your number two. Like last year, he was kind of your de
Yeah.
facto number two. So maybe you throw him
Right.
out there. Maybe throw Gainwell. Maybe goes out there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I do. I'm glad you brought up before we do switch because I do want to ask you a little bit about baseball as well. But before we switch gears, I want to talk to you about this running back room because a lot of people are just saying that, and I can throw myself in there. A lot of people are saying that this might be Miles Sanders last year. That the writing's kind of
Mhm.
on the wall.
I'm in that boat.
Kenny Gainwell would be the heir apparent. How are you feeling about this running back room so far? And when do you think they're going to bring Jordan Howard back? That's the real question. That's,
That really is. That's the big question. I think Miles Sanders, look, I've been a huge fan of him. I do have a jersey. I love Miles, but I'm also realistic on him because I want him to be better. I
Yeah,
still think I think at worst, he's a very solid running back. Like he's absolutely, he can be a lead back in a committee, but I'm just not sure, you know, how much longer you can keep going with. Well, one, it feels like every other week he's got some nagging injury, and that's the problem with every running back these days, to be honest. Which is why the committee works so well, I think. But even in the committee, Miles has been hurt. Two, I just think there's times where his vision just fails him, and
yeah,
he does not find the lane and just dances around a little bit too much. I didn't want to believe it at first. I tried to make excuses, but you go back and watch. I mean, there's plenty of instances where he just needs to make a decision quicker. And you see, when you see, I know it was the end of the game, and I know that the Bucks were probably like a little more lax on defense, but when you have Boston Scott come in and run for what, like a 30-yard touchdown or whatever it is right away, just right through the hole, it's a little frustrating because I think the Bucks had a run game. They had a run game pretty much stopped the whole time, but at the same time, there were times Miles could have hit a hole and got some yards. It wasn't a lost cause, but I think he needs to do a little better job. He needs to find the end zone this year. I think that'll be a big confidence boost. Like week one, he finds the end zone. That'll be huge. So I want to see, I don't know if we're going to extend him regardless. I mean, he would have to have a pretty nuts year, I think, for us to extend him just because I don't think the Eagles are interested in paying that much money to keep a running back around as cool as Miles is. And as he's a Philly guy. I mean, I love Miles.
yeah,
He's a really hard worker. He's another guy. He goes out there and he talks and he usually backs it up. So, and I think the rest of the room, I think Boston Scott's a great goal line back for the size he's at. Like there's times where you just see him push guys back in the end zone. It's crazy. Or he just bounces. He meets guys in the hole and bounces off of them and gets in the end zone. I think he's great at that. He's, obviously we need him for the Giants games, but I really do think he's such a good complementary piece to the rest of the room as that third option. And Gainwell, I mean, look, he can do everything. He can pass protect. He's a great receiver. I think that's really where his strength is route running. And I think you saw him get better as the year went on running. I was a little frustrated, didn't get as many reps, but I understood the decision to go with the more experienced guys as the year went on. I did understand it. And then the rest of the room, I mean, look, Huntley's the guy. Speaking of special teams, I mean, we talk about the wide receiver room, and speaking of wide receiver room, that's why J.J. made the roster last year was because of what he did on special teams and the preseason. So credit to him. But Huntley is a guy. special teams could absolutely push them into that last spot if that's what they're looking for. You know, if they're not necessarily hoping for that. Kennedy Brooks, if they don't bring Jordan Howard back, could be that power type of guy you want in the hole to just drive his legs and get those extra yards. But at the same time, if Brooks doesn't show what you want him to show, you know, you bring Jordan Howard back, and even the Eagles will bring him back at some point, whether that's injuries mid-season or whether that's this summer. I have confidence Jordan Howard will be back. I don't know why other teams don't bring him on their roster, but for whatever
Yeah,
reason, we're just kind of on a weird, hey, you want to come back type of basis with Jordan Howard every so often. It's really odd, but I do think he'll be back at some point. He's experienced, and obviously he can help Kennedy Brooks a little bit, but if you don't feel like Kennedy Brooks is making progress, that's a guy you can probably stick on the practice squad and then have Howard, the more experienced guy, come in and really move the chains for you. So I love Jordan Howard. I mean, the only thing I could really see is maybe the injuries because he had that shoulder thing again last year. But
yeah.
I mean, when he's on the field, he's so consistent and you know what you're getting from him day in and day out. It's just so nice to know that.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I love Kennedy Brooks. I really do.
Yeah.
I didn't know who he was before we picked him up. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh, he's a sleeper. That was some guy. No idea who he was. But after watching a little bit of his tape and everything, kind of guy, because I can say that about most running backs. I was not really worried about a running back this offseason because I was like,
No.
you can throw me behind that offensive line and we're gonna get 5 yards a
Yeah.
carry. So like
Yeah.
I wasn't too worried about who we got. But once I did go look at Kennedy Brooks, you said it. To me, he's a balance. He's like a power balance back. Like that.
Yeah.
The guy always looks like he's about to fall. Like he
Yeah.
always literally looks like he's about to fall, but it's just always falling forward. So
Yeah.
he's got that balance in him. He's got that power in him. He's got a little bit of shiftiness. He's not really somebody that's going to take, one to the house from the 5, but he's
Sure.
got a little bit of speed to him, got a little bit of breakaway from to him, and he's going to run through most arm tackles, if not all of them. I like the guy, you know what I'm saying? But like you said, he has to show that in the actual camp and actual when the
Yeah.
bullets are
And
flying. My
we
thing
we
with
need
him is
him we
go
we need
ahead.
him to get a new number too. I'm not a fan of that number 49 for whatever reason. So
My thing with him is pass protection. That's always
yeah.
my thing with
Yeah.
all these guys. I want to see who can pass protect the best because that's what's really going to get you
Right.
in my eyes, especially on the if it's not special teams.
Keeps
Because
you on
you
the
are
field.
right. Yeah, that's what's going to get you on the field, man. So I really, it's interesting. It's an interesting group of guys,
Yeah.
especially if Miles Sanders doesn't come back. You look at us, we got 2 first rounds next year, maybe trade back, end up with a running back or something because it's the position is the value to a point. You can get a very good player in the second, third, fourth round.
Right.
So and you even look at what was his name, James Robinson or something like that from the Jaguars. I think he was
Yeah.
undrafted.
You're right. Yep.
And
He
dude
was.
had like 1,000 yards. Dude was an absolute beast. So there's
Yeah.
talent out there. There's definitely talent out there.
I
Now
mean,
I
what Kenneth Walker was the first guy off the board, and he went pick 44 or something, and all like Brees
yeah,
Hall and these guys were like day 4 or day 3 picks or whatever it was. It's crazy.
exactly, and a lot of people have first round grades on them. A lot of people have
Yeah.
first at the
Mhm.
worst second round grades on some of these guys. So it's crazy. I mean, and you look at how I haven't done too much research on next year's draft. I'm probably gonna start that in a couple weeks or so. Like I had to like get my mind off draft. Like this year, I really try to go hard on this draft, and it just like you've done it, so you know what I'm talking about. It just like takes over your mind,
Takes a lot. Takes a lot
It
out of you.
does. It takes a whole lot, but it was fun. And next year,
Yeah.
I plan to do the same. But this year, I'm going to kind of get
Mhm.
a little head start on it.
Yes.
And I don't know where the strengths are. Right, this year was very obvious where the strengths are. That you could see where it
Right.
was top heavy and where you had the best talent at. Next year, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. It might be a draft that they're like, all right, we're going skill position. This who knows? Trends are made to be broken, especially with the NFL.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. We'll see what happens next year. But I do want to keep on trends. I want to talk about trends, right? Because your Phillies, my girlfriend's from Philadelphia. Her whole family's from Philadelphia. Die-hard Phillies fan. She wanted me to
Mm.
bring this up because she's happy that you guys are doing well. So I do want to ask you, and I want to know because we used to have your former manager. As a Yankees fan, he used to be our manager, and we canned him, and we're now first in the league. So there's something between that, right? I mean, hey, but what's happening with the Phillies, man? What magic Jordan drink did you guys get that got you guys on this 5-game win streak? Was it really just as simple as getting rid of your manager to you?
It was definitely that Gatorade Michael Jordan commercial that helped us.
Yeah.
The Gatorade's helping us. I actually did a school project on that. What a great commercial. But anyway, look, no, this is, I mean, Joe Girardi is not, he's not out there on the field. He can't control how those players perform, right? I mean, that is not all on him. I don't want to put it all on him, but at the same time, when you're paying that much money and you go over the luxury tax for the first time in, however many years, or like, I mean, at least since we've quote unquote ended the rebuild, first time we've gone over the luxury tax finally, and we spend big on these guys and they're performing the way they are, 8 games under 500. That is definitely, that's a huge warning sign. That's a huge red flag, as the ladies like to say. So look, I mean, I liked Joe when we hired him. I thought it was the right decision. Ultimately, I think the bullpen mismanagement was bad because in New York, I think, and again, I didn't watch the Yankees closely, so take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt. But I think you guys had a really good bullpen when he was there, if I'm not mistaken. At the least, you had Mo, who was obviously the best reliever of all time. It's a little easier to mismanage that type of bullpen when you go to the Phillies and you have a bullpen that's led the league in blown saves, led the league in worst bullpen ERA for however many years now. You don't have that margin for error anymore. I mean, you just go out there and throw in guys into these situations they're not prepared for. It's not going to work. And he has this 3-day rule. Pitchers can't pitch 3 days in a row, relief pitchers. I mean, how many other guys across the league, star relievers, are pitching 3 days in a row? And you're telling me our guys can't do that? I mean, these guys aren't made out of glass. And he's saying, well, we need these guys ready for October. Brother, there ain't going to be no October right now. Like we're looking at September and maybe a couple regular season games in October, and we're done. So I think that was a problem. I think there was a lot of lack of energy and motivation. Those guys didn't look like they wanted to be out there. I mean, I was at a game at Citi Field on Sunday, last Sunday, and we go up 4-3. Massive Castellanos go-ahead home run. Next inning, Corey Knebel comes in, gives up a game-tying home run to a rookie in his first major league game. It was his first major league hit. And I'm like, there we go. I told my friend, I was like, look, Knebel's going to blow it. Sure enough, he blew it. We lost the game in extras. I was like, the Phillies are going to waste the ghost runner on second base, and the Mets are going to take advantage and walk it off. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. So I think there was just a lot of energy lacking. There was a lot of decision-making lacking on Joe Girardi's end. He's not a guy like – there haven't been enough times where – when things have gone wrong in terms of umpire calls and that stuff, he doesn't go out there and really he doesn't really get scream and yell the way you'd hope that would get a team fired up. I think you have, there was a slide call last week where Rhys Hoskins got called for the slide rule in second base. When that happened, it was an atrocious call. I mean, it should not have even been under review. You go out there and give a piece of your mind to the umpires. I mean, when Angel Hernandez was out there calling awful balls and strikes against Kyle Schwarber threw his helmet down, and he said, you missed here, you missed high, you missed low, you missed everywhere. 30 missed calls tonight. Why is Joe Girardi not out there exuding some energy and getting confidence, giving any type of spark? So I think if anything, while it's not Joe Girardi's fault, if nothing for more than just to provide a spark, it needed to happen. And I don't want to say that's the entire reason, but I do think these guys realized, look, part of the reason Girardi got fired was because we weren't performing. No matter what decision he makes, we have to go out there and perform and prove him right for making those decisions. And they did not do that. So I think now they're realizing, we got to go out there and do that. And also June Schwarber is out again. I mean, he's just been insane in June the past couple of years, and he's off to a good start this June as well. So, but like Frank Tank said, he strikes out quite a bit too. So you kind of get the pros and cons of them. But that's my long explanation on what's kind of sparked the team these last 5 games. I was shocked they won last night. I thought the old Phillies were coming back, but they found a way last night. So, yeah, that's my long explanation on it.
That's it. No, I feel you. It was necessary. It was necessary because there's a lot going on over there. And it's true. Joe Girardi, he shows no type of love. And that's like the biggest thing. I used to play baseball, right? That's the biggest thing to me. I want to know that I'm not the only one mad about this. When you're in that box and you're looking at that call and you're like, wait, hold up. Like, am I not seeing this right? So when you have a manager, I always say coach, when you have a manager that goes out there and stomps the ground, but kicks dirt in the you want that. That's the passion you want. That gets you hype. That gives you the energy to go back out there and fight for your captain, right? Like that's what you feel like you're going to war for your guy. so much that does not happen in baseball that happens in other contact sports that get you hyped up. Basketball, you hit a
Yeah,
shot, you're getting hyped up. Baseball
yeah,
is a slow sport. You know what I'm saying? No matter how many rules they want to add to try and make it go quicker, it is a slow sport, and it is a mental game. You know, yeah, I think
mhm,
Yogi said it right. It's 90% mental, 50% physical, or whatever it was that he said.
right, right,
But you know, it's true. So you have to give that mental edge when you can as a manager. But
right.
what?
And I just
Go
wanted to
ahead. Go
say
ahead.
real
Yeah.
quick too on speeding the game up. I think something I think they don't understand is that these guys who you are these fans who you're trying to attract to the game, they might not want to watch the game of baseball because no matter how much you speed it up, like you said, Joe, it is going to be a slow game. And it's not for everyone. It really is like an acquired taste. And I don't blame people who don't like baseball. Like I have nothing against those people because I understand it. Some people just need a faster pace moving game. Some people appreciate the game of baseball, but you're not going to attract more fans by speeding up the game. I mean, it hasn't worked. I mean, there's still plenty of empty stadiums. Just the unfortunate way that things are going right now. So I think all these rules they're putting in place, try to speed up the game and all that, doesn't make it any more interesting. I mean, I think the
Nah.
runner on second base in extra innings. I mean, half the people aren't watching by extra innings these days. So
Yeah.
what's the point?
Facts.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if there's much they can do, but I mean, you have to cater towards the returning customers and the fans who appreciate the game already and give them more of what they want.
Exactly. That's 100%. Yeah, that's straight up facts right there. I do have one more question, and then we're gonna get off of baseball because you know I'm not a baseball
Yeah,
guy.
sure,
I
sure,
love baseball. Don't get me wrong, but I don't cover it. So that's why I ask you because you know your stuff. But what's like the life? What's the lifetime on this team? Like what has to happen for this team to be completely imploded? Is that even an option? Because I know contracts are involved and things like
sure.
that. But like what what is what can happen with this? Like, how bad do they have to get before we see the worst thing happen? And what is the worst thing? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I think if they're still, kind of hovering below 500 around the All-Star break, you're going to see them probably look to sell. I don't
Mm,
think, I think if they get to like a little above 500, I think they'll probably buy because look, I mean, you had the Trashionals a couple years ago, won the World Series. They ended up, they did not start out the year very well. They were well below 500 in like May or June. And you have to believe, I mean, if you're the Phillies organization, the money you've paid, you have to have faith that they can maybe I don't know if they're going to win the World Series, but as a GM and all those guys, you have to have faith that they can, you get in a dance, you never know what can happen. So if you have a chance at the deadline, I think they will buy. They bought last year and they were just a few games
yeah.
over 500. So I mean, I think it absolutely is possible though if they're still around this point, this 5-game winning streak ends and they kind of return back to normal and they're kind of hovering below 500 a little bit, they will sell at the deadline. And I think honestly, just being below 500 is the rock bottom. Maybe not the rock bottom. I'm sure it could get worse. I'm a Phillies fan. I've seen it get worse plenty of times. Good to see you, be shaky. Miss you too, bro. I know you got a lot going on. Always see your pictures on Instagram with your little boy. So appreciate you, man. I love you, bro. But anyway, I think like look, I've seen this team that they definitely aren't going to hit rock bottom right now, but it's definitely possible. But I do think like one of the worst case scenarios is you're still below 500 at the deadline, and then the offseason you really have some looking in the mirror to do as a ball club. You have a new manager to find. You have all these contracts on your hand. You have Bryce, Castellanos, Schwarber, and Wheeler. That's really your main core of guys that are kind of lined up for these next few years. So you have to focus on building around them the best you can. And I don't know. There's a lot of guys who have some looking in the mirror to do themselves, or else they might get shipped off in the offseason as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think the championship window should be now. It should be. I think it's the next couple years, honestly. I think you have time. Bryce is not getting too old. He's still got plenty of years left at an MVP level, I think. But I also think at the same time, they might have to, like you said, they might implode, and it might be this year that they have to really retool. So while I'm high on the 5-game win streak, there's a lot left to accomplish. So
Yeah, I feel you. Let me give some shout outs because I haven't been. So I tell my girl she can calm down. It's okay. The Phillies are okay. Hunter said that the Phillies are going to be
yes,
okay. I'm gonna let her know
yes,
you said it.
we're gonna
I'm
be
gonna let her
good.
know you said it. Shout out to Ms. To RC Bird Gang Productions, Drew Johnson in the building, Ryan Rowe in the building. Who else we got in here? We got a whole bunch of people I ain't reading now. Midwest Eagles fan, Michael DeJean, Pickle Juice Player. I like that name. That's funny. That's funny. He said he was getting compared to Justin Jefferson, big shoes to follow.
Yeah,
I'm assuming he's talking about Rager. That's very true.
Rager.
That's very true. Frank Tank, you listen, I don't know if Frank Tank comes into your chats. Has he ever came into your chats?
I haven't seen him before, but
This
I
this
do
man
appreciate him.
hates everybody. And he loves you. He loves you. That is something to take away from this chat. Like I've never
Love you
seen
too,
him
Frank.
talk. Yeah, usually he just like kind of, he kind of just like trolls but he likes you. So that's what's up. I'm actually proud of that. What's going
Yeah,
on, Miss
come over to
Bird
my channel,
Gang?
Frank. Appreciate
Yeah,
you.
so go on the link, the pinned comment in the chat, in my chat, is your channel. So definitely go on over to
Thank you.
Philly Insider Podcast. I'm sorry I haven't really been reading the comments, but I haven't had my mans on in so long. So, uh what's going on, Bird man? What's going on? I don't know about Dan Silio's show. I don't know. If he hit me up, maybe. I don't know. I don't know if that's where I'm going next. Hulk Mercenary, what's going on? Eagles Realist in the building. Jeremiah Butler. Obviously, Brandon was in the building. If I missed you, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But so let's hop back before we get out of here. We got like 15 more minutes. I'm gonna run with you,
Yeah.
and then we're gonna get out of here. But I want to get back to football a little bit, right? And I want to ask your expectations because that's kind of where we are right now. We're looking on paper, and obviously we want to get better, right? We won 9 games last year, made the playoffs. Apparently we played a playoff game. I didn't see us play, but that's apparently what happened. It felt like the only thing that was happening was the Buccaneers were out there playing against themselves. That's a whole nother story for a whole nother time. It is what it is. I'm still a little hurt if you can't tell, but either way, we should get better, right? Added some really good talent to this team. What are your expectations as far as where this team should land or where this team should go?
I was looking at the schedule recently, and obviously it's hard to make schedule predictions until like the season really gets underway, and obviously things
Yeah.
change. But I went in looking at the schedule just without going through game by game. I remember saying I think this team can definitely they're definitely going to be a 10-win team. I think that's where I was at, and then I went through and predicted the schedule, and I was like, all right, I'm going to try to be fair here. I'm not going to be biased, and I'm really going to try to make sure I give the Eagles some losses. And I came away still with 11 wins in that prediction. I surprised myself. I thought I was going to end up around 10-7, and I had us around 11. And I think 12 is definitely a possibility. So I really think, look, the expectation for this team, I think, has to be to get to the playoffs, of course. But beyond that, I think you need to win a playoff game this year for sure.
Yeah.
And I don't want to put that all on Jalen because it's a team game. I think that is something people are going to look to say, can Jalen stay next year? He needs to get a playoff win. So I think it's definitely important for him. I mean, even if it's not on him, it's, obviously a lot of it does fall on him. So it's really important for him. So I think that's my expectation. And I expect the defense. I mean, we talk a lot about the offense. I think the offense is going to be, even at their lowest point, I think they're still going to be able to put up some points. I don't think we're going to have any single digit games like we did against the Giants last year. And when we did before garbage time in certain games, I think we're going to be able to put up like 17 points at the lowest, at the very minimum. But I think this defense is going to be a lot better. And I think you said it. You said it, Joe. Jordan Davis, I think, is the kind of glue that holds everything together. Because when you have a guy like that who takes up multiple bodies on the interior, it helps everyone else out because that takes an extra body out of the box and puts them into coverage while you're still able to stop the run. I mean, the less bodies you can stop the run with, the better. And I think the big thing is you're going to have him taking up so much space in the interior. You're going to have Cox and Hargrave playing next to him, most likely, with some other guys mixed in. And I really think that combo in the run, I mean, people will get on Fletcher Cox for the pass game and all that. I understand he doesn't have as many sacks anymore. I understand he's not maybe the same pass rusher he was. He's still the same run stopper, in my opinion. I think Javon Hargrave's got to go a little better in that category. But, I think all those guys, they can definitely really clog the interior. And then you have these guys on the outside. We have good run stopping DBs. I mean, Darius Slay can come up and stop the run. Bradbury's very good at stopping the run. Maddox did it last year. And you have Jimmy Moreland now. Jimmy Moreland was good at stopping the run when he was with Washington his last year with them. So, and I think these safeties are going to do a fine job with the help they're going to have. I think it also helps the linebackers. I mean, it just helps everyone. The linebackers are going to have an easier time stopping the run because the guys in front of them are going to be able to fill. So I really think the defense is what boosts my expectations for this team because I think it just makes everyone's job easier. And if you're getting off the field, like people talk about how many downs Jordan Davis is going to play. If he's getting stops on first and second down, who needs him there on third down? I mean, sure, there's sometimes you're going to want him out there, but you can take him off the field and live with him with him being off the field in third down and just get your pass rushers out there, your pure pass rushers. I think Jordan Davis can pass rush, but Yeah, I think it makes everyone's job easier. I think it makes the offense's job easier. They're going to be able to wear the defense out with some long drives as well. So that to me is where my expectations come from. And I do think this team can be a 12, maybe 13 win team. I have them at 11, but I think at the same time, my floor is 10. So I think they're definitely their ceiling. I don't know where their ceiling falls. I think it's high. I don't know if I'm 16-1. I know there's some people out there saying that right now, but
Not no
um,
17-0, no 17 and
yeah,
0.
no, but I think that's where my expectations are. Where are you at with the expectations for the team?
I am to the moon. I am no. I think that I think we're gonna be a really good team. I'm kind of around the same area. I think it's gonna be 10 to 12 is where I am right now. And if you at
Yeah,
12, you surprise me with like a Green Bay or
sure,
maybe
yeah,
a Cardinals game. Like there's like one or two games that I'm like, you could win these games. I'll be surprised if we do. That'll be a big step, but you can win
right.
these games. And I think there's a couple of those on our schedule. Last year there was like three or four, maybe five games that I were like, we're probably not going to win this game. I don't think that
Yeah,
there's any this year. I think that every game you can make the argument we can be in it. Obviously, we still don't know how everything's going to work out. Jonathan Gannon's a big piece to this puzzle as far as
right.
how he utilizes his players. But I'm, 10 to 12 wins. My biggest fear, and I want to ask you about this, is that they're empty calories, that they're empty wins, right? We're going into a season where we have a pretty easy schedule, right? We have a pretty easy schedule this year. Are you a little bit afraid that you go into the playoffs, and I guess the playoffs would prove it to you, but you go into the playoffs with 12 wins, but you went against a lot of bad teams, right? Like Dallas isn't that good. Giants aren't that good. Washington, like the teams that you kind of expect to give you a fight aren't that good this year. Do you get a little bit nervous going into, and does that kind of muck up the evaluation of some of these younger players?
hmm I'm not too nervous just because I think the Super Bowl year we really didn't have a too tough of a schedule that year either. I mean, we
True.
we blew through teams, and then unfortunately did have a loss to the Seahawks, who we seemed to never be able to beat. Almost came back in that game, but there's also a forward lateral call on Russell Wilson that was not called. But I won't get mad about that. We didn't play a good football game, so we didn't deserve that game. But I think that year you did see them. The one game they were really battle tested was that Rams game in LA with Todd Gurley, an MVP candidate out there, Carson Wentz, an MVP candidate out there, and Carson Wentz had a phenomenal game. Gurley had a really good game. He got off to a hot start. And we face some adversity. Foles goes down. And in the face of adversity, in the face of a really tough competition and test, we come out on top. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be that level where we have Jalen Hurts playing at MVP level and he goes down and we have Gardner Minshew. I'm not saying it's the same scenario, but I think there are going to be games like you mentioned a Green Bay. It is in Philly, but it's a night game. I mean, that's going to be huge. You have, I mean, I'm trying to see who else. I mean, there's definitely other teams on the schedule, like you kind of mentioned Arizona. We don't have too many tough battles, but I do think there's going to be some tests, like that AT&T game. Like I think the Cowboys will still be good, but like Christmas Eve game in Dallas, that's a huge, huge battle for us. I mean, they're going to come out to play. Dallas is going to come out to play that game. They're still going to be competing for playoffs at the point, in my opinion. So I think as long as they get battle tested a couple times, and maybe there's some teams who are better than we expect them to be, and we show like one or two times that we can really get it done in the face of adversity, I'll feel good going into the playoffs. Because honestly, last year, we played a Tuesday night game against a COVID-ridden Washington team. We played against Jake Fromm. We played against Trevor Siemian. Like, we made the playoffs. I'm not going to take that away from the Eagles, but we all know we didn't play
Yeah.
we didn't play a hard schedule last year. I mean, that was abnormally fairly easy, and the best position on the football field for some of those teams was taken away from them. So, not
Mhm.
saying Danny Dimes would have beat us, but it definitely gives them a better shot in that first half where they were only down 7-3 in that second Giants
Yeah.
game.
Mhm.
So, those games were a little too close for comfort at times. Even the Heineke game, second Heineke game. I mean, that was close. I mean, if Rodney McLeod isn't there, it could be a touchdown. So obviously, there's a lot of ifs, ands, and buts, but at the same time, we got the job done, and that's all that matters. But I do think this year, I don't know if we're going to have as easy of a cupcake walk as we kind of did to the playoffs last year. So I am confident that we'll go into the playoffs feeling good about ourselves. And unfortunately, to your point, we might end up getting knocked on our butts just because the Buccaneers are they're those guys. The Rams
Yeah.
are those guys. Those are teams that are built to contend for the Super Bowl. They're not just built to beat us. They're built to go beyond that. We're going to find out how far we're kind of built to go. So we're going to get tested for sure in the playoffs, but I do think we'll get tested a little bit in the regular season.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I'm definitely excited for it. Shout out to Joey Shakes in the building.
Yes, sir.
Said fly Eagles fly. We have to wait until July 26th, last day of OTAs. Yeah, this is it. It starts. I think it already just started. I think it started at like 12:50, I believe, if I'm not
Hmm.
mistaken. So they'll
Around there.
probably be done in the next 10-15 minutes. They those things are like 10-20 minutes now at this point.
Right, right.
Uh, we'll see what happens, man. We'll see what happens. But before we do go, I want to get one last thing. We have to do it, right? We
Sure.
have to do it in this. Break down this division for me. I'll tell you right now. I got it. Eagles. I got it. Washington, and then I got it. Cowboys, Giants. That's how I'm gonna
Mm,
break it down. I think that the Eagles win 12, like I'll say 11 games. I think that the Giants end up winning like 9, maybe 8. And then I think Washington wins like 9 or 8, and then the Cowboys win like 7 or 8, and then the
hmm
Giants win like 5 or 6.
hmm
That's where
I
I'm
think
at.
you make a good point on Washington because look, we talk about Carson Wentz all day long, and obviously that's not the guy who's the answer to their Super Bowl aspirations, right? But at the same time, I mean, we talk about the Heineke game last year, and we talk about that defense not even fully healthy, did a lot of damage still last year. And with that defense fully healthy, I think they are going to win some games. So I think to your point, they are around like that kind of 9-win range for sure. 10 if Carson doesn't lose to the Jaguars and the Raiders at the end of the year and absolutely implodes, but that's bound to happen at some point. So, as it does every year. But anyway, I mean, look, I do think I think the Cowboys. I don't like the Cowboys at all. Obviously, I hate them. They're the least favorite team of the NFC East. I do think that with I don't like Dak either. I think he's overrated, but I do think he is good enough to kind of keep them in the race. And I do think they finished second in the division. So I have it Eagles on top for sure. I think this is the year we take the East, and I think we could sweep the Cowboys. I really do. But I do think the Cowboys will be second. I guess you could kind of give them around the same as Washington, but maybe they have the tiebreaker on Washington or something.
Mhm.
Maybe 10. Cowboys definitely didn't get better, but I still think they have enough star power to compete.
Definitely.
Washington third, but I think it's very close. And then New York, I've kind of got around like I'll give them 8. I'll give them 8. I'm not ready to give them, get them over the winning what's it called? Winning record yet. But I do think they had a phenomenal draft. I loved every draft pick they made in the first 2 days. And I think they're gonna get better. I think the GM is good. I think he's gotten the cap space situation under wraps. I think Brian Dable is a phenomenal coach.
Yeah.
I think they've really got a lot going right for them. And I just think they need another year. I think 2023 will really be the year where we're like, okay, the Giants have really geared up a little bit and they've got the quarterback situation kind of figured out. And I think they're ready to go. So that's kind of where I've got everyone at.
Yeah, that's kind of how I'm feeling about the Giants. That's why I feel like I mean 5, 6, 7. They're not gonna be a team that you're like, oh, they're coming down the stretch, in my opinion.
Sure.
So we'll see what happens. I do agree with you that after this year will be interesting to see where they're at, especially
Yeah.
with their quarterback situation. If they really feel like Daniel Jones is that guy, if he takes the next step, because
Right.
after I should say before last season. I was thinking that Daniel Jones was going to take that next step. You saw
Yeah,
towards
me
the
too.
end of his rookie year, he was kind of going crazy. He was like, putting up big numbers, having those crazy fourth down comebacks and everything, or
Yeah.
fourth quarter comebacks. So I thought he was going to do something. I'm not going to lie. I was totally wrong. So we'll see what happens this year. I'm not gonna jump off that ledge again because he definitely proved me
Right.
wrong. But you'll see. We'll see. I think that everybody's kind of looking at Giants with a side eye, kind of like, well, we see you doing something over there, right? Like we see something happening over there. Soon
Right.
we're gonna have to worry about it, but I don't know if it's right now. But I think we about to get out of here. Paul Mancini says Eagles, Cowboys. Let me see what this one. I want to see now. He says Eagles 11-6, Cowboys 10. Yeah, I can respect that. I can respect that. I'm around there. I'm around
Hmm.
there. I'm around there. D Shift says Cowboys won't beat by won't be beat by 10 teams. You tripping? Are they gonna be beat by like 11? By 11.
He's
I'm
right. They're
calling
not
it
going to be
like
by 10.
that.
It's going to be 11 or 12.
Exactly. Yeah. So you're right. Yeah, exactly. It's not gonna be 10. It's gonna be 11. Exactly. I love it. But yeah, if this is true, I don't want to get too much into this. Paul Mancini saying that the Eagles may have interest in going after Deshaun Watson. I if that happens, I will. I don't
Yeah.
know if I'll be an Eagles fan for a little while. It might take me a little
I'm
bit.
I'm in the same boat, and I don't think it will happen either. I think that's just kind of
Yeah.
smoke in the air.
Yeah, but yeah, no, we about to get out of here, man. But if you are looking for Hunter's channel, like I said, it is the pinned comment in the chat, so definitely go check it out. We got about 30 people in here. Be sure to hit that like, hit that subscribe, join the family if you're not already. But Hunter, you got anything you want to say to the people before we get out of here?
Well, I appreciate you doing this live with me, Joe. It was a blast. It's like I said, it's been too long, so it's always good to catch up with you, man. Let's do this more often as the season approaches and during the season. And yeah, I appreciate you, man, for your time, and thank you all for watching. We appreciate y'all, and God bless.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But y'all know what it is, man. It is Fly Eagles Fly, and we are out here. Peace.
Everywhere. This is for
Yeah.
you.
Fly was flying on the team. Touchdown, touchdown. Time to get Jalen this ring. You don't really want to start a thing. This a bird gang nation, baby. It's a Philly thing. Hater, and you looking like you type trash. I'm just here calling on Philly the podcast. And we can call a man dog or watch Miles score off the handoff. Rest of the division, your man soft. Jackson like Sean, hunting like Randall. Season head, really time to do him in. Your boy Philly Fresco. Thanks for tuning in.